Does that mean we're live? Like Jimmy, we're live.
Oh, hello, everybody.
My God, I can't. Right
How you
now.
like them apples? Ladies and gentlemen, welcome
Jimmy.
to Monte the Pharaoh. And now here's our fearless leader and head of the family, Michael Monte. Michael, how are you tonight?
Dude, I'm still trying to gather myself here. All right, I still have to.
Tried.
I'm all
Guys
over the
there,
place.
I tried to give
can't
a big
work.
voice.
We're moving to different streams. So, welcome to Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. I'm Mike Monte, and on across the universe, straight out of Wahoo Saloon, Mr. Jimmy Pharaoh. Jimmy, welcome back.
What is up? What's going on now that we've arrived here? Is everybody from the other chat thing over here now? Are they here?
Probably not. Right now, we're talking to a zero. Oh, wait, they're all coming. They're all coming.
Come on.
I'm sorry, guys. We're running all over the place today.
Sorry about that, folks.
Wait. So we started the new studio next week.
Okay.
Tin Mirror, where we shot the Chuck Columba. We worked out a deal. But we said, we didn't want to cancel this week. We were supposed to have Missy Beefcake on, but I asked Missy not to come on because we were having production issues, and I didn't want to make her stay up late in case we couldn't get this thing rolling, right? But we got it rolling, thanks to Bruce.
Fair enough.
Not too bad. Jimmy, how is your week going, sir?
Good. It's going well. I enjoy working in the hobby field and selling all sorts of sports cards and coins and comics and PCB hobby. And wow, I did a cheap pop. How do you like that?
It's pretty cool.
I enjoy it very much over there. It's like, Mike, as you know, many moons ago, I worked in a comic situation. And it was my favorite job, just out of joy. I'm sure you understand that, right? If you're doing what you love to do for a living, I'm not sure if you really have anything else to complain about. And this is basically what I discovered in my life. So I'm thrilled to be involved in hobby again, the things like comics and cards, sports cards and coins and stuff. I love that stuff. So I'm having fun going to work, and it's a great place to be. It's a great place to work at. There's some great people there.
Honestly, Jimmy, I'm just jealous that you're shooting out of Wahoo Saloon. I love that shit.
Yeah,
I just like the name.
Yeah, it's great.
I love that.
It's great. Yeah, it's fantastic. That. Yeah, it feels right. You know what I meant?
You know what I meant to ask you? We haven't talked about that, but what was your opinion of Wahoo as a wrestler? I mean, obviously we didn't grow up on the guy, right? So we didn't see him a lot. So it's a pretty difficult conversation.
Well, you know what's weird, Mike, and I think that this is being 100% accurate. I don't recall you and I ever talking about Wahoo when we were kids. Is that accurate?
That would be accurate. In fact, I think we would bet a point, Jimmy, to be honest with you, that he was like the enemy, right? Because we were like Chief Jay Strongbow guys, right? And he was like, little do we know, at least this was my deal, is I always thought he was a cheap ripoff of Chief Jay Strongbow because, again, but now I know, but back then it was like, he's just copying Chief Jay Strongbow. Get your own,
Well, as you remember, and let's be accurate, neither you nor I were fans of Chief Jay Strongbow. He just happened to be a WWF very popular product. Okay, I don't always look at it as militaristic as you do, and I say that because I think it's accurate. Yeah, it is the enemy. I completely agree. Back in those days, that the NWA was the enemy, just like WCW was, and we beat them both. And good for us for doing that. But I've always been a bit of a nerd when it came to wrestling. You know that. Wahoo McDaniel, I always looked at as he's a badass, and I used to look at the pictures of him in the magazines and go, he's a hell of a lot more beefy than Chief Jay Strongbow. I mean, Chief Jay Strongbow's physique never impressed me, even when I was a kid. I was like you. I was impressed with Ken Patera. I was impressed with Brooksky's build. I was impressed with Atlas. Hell, I was impressed with Backlund's build. Morocco with that crazy vein on his shoulder. I was impressed by the same things you were impressed by, but we were also both impressed by guys who didn't necessarily have to be muscle guys like the Samoans. True or false?
Absolutely.
Big dude. Pharaoh kills the Cluna. Big dude. You know what I mean? He didn't always have to have that one look. I always looked at Wahoo and was like, God, he's immense. I was always amazed at the size of his thighs. I was like, oh my God, this guy. You know what he was? Almost like a Samoa Joe build. Like right. Joe's obviously like that. But I'm just saying, though, tree trunk thickness is what I'm getting at. And he was always paired up with the Flairs or the Dusties or, whatever he was doing was always pretty much main event stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like in those days, he was U.S. champion when it meant to the NWA what the Intercontinental title meant to us, right?
Right.
And he held the belt 5 times. This is a major, major dude. So, no, I never looked at him like, if anything, Chief Jay Strongbow is the true ripoff. He's the Italian guy who played in Indian and was built like a baked potato. At the end of the day.
It's funny when I listen to some wrestling fans now, they're like, why can't you like both products? Like we loved multiple products when we saw them on TV, but in the end, we had rooting interest in the WWE. Those were our guys.
Absolutely, and we took it personally when the rankings would come out in PWI, and it was always Bob was always second fiddle, and we were laughing like, okay, this could sound arrogant, but you know what? We're New Yorkers, all right. There's nothing like the city. There's nothing like Madison Square Garden. There's a reason Wall Street is in New York. It's the business center of the world, and there's a reason why on 9/11 they picked Manhattan. New York is New York, and growing up in New York and watching, in Benny's case, Bruno sell out Madison Square Garden. That's Madison Square Garden, folks. You know what I'm saying? It's Madison Square Garden. You can name a lot of other major arenas, and some of them absolutely great prominence to them, and they're legendary. But this is Madison Square Garden we're talking about. So when those ratings would come out, we would be like, "What are you guys looking at? What are you measuring it up against? Your own purist values or the facts?" You know what I'm saying? And I know you know what I'm saying.
It's funny you bring that up when Apter was on, and we love Apter.
Great.
He tried to deny the fact that they were squashing WWE talent. Apter was working with the NWA. We called him out on it, remember? And he's like, "Oh no, we didn't do that bullshit." They used to try to stomp Backlund I remember one time he denied it. We brought it up. Remember when he had Backlund and I'm like number 7 or something like that? He had non-champions ahead of him.
It was silly at the time. Bob Backlund was such a great wrestler, and I found it ironic that the purists, that were leaning towards the other territories would not realize that Backlund's exactly what they hold dear: a pure wrestler with a pure amateur background of the highest championship level. And if you mess with him in real life, he would twist you into bookends. He was everything that was right about a professional wrestler. That's all there is to it. And for 5.5 years? To us, it felt like 50, right, Mike? But for 5.5 years, Bob Backlund was the champion of the eventual ultimate company in the history of this business, and sold out Madison Square Garden all the time. Stop with the Backlund wasn't drawing bullshit, Mike. Did you ever go to a match at the Garden that wasn't packed? I always
if you remember what Sullivan said that they would pack Backlund shows, right, to make sure that they had sellouts. So they would put Andre on there. They'd do that. But listen, Backlund was big time. But a lot of times, I think you would agree on a Patterson or Morocco snooker cage match. I mean, that we can't deny, right?
No.
But it's like.
No.
Let me ask you something. What is your most memorable match that Bob Backlund had? And let me ask you this. I'll even go a little further, because we were screwing around while Bruce was trying to get everything going, right? I was quizzing Jimmy on Star Trek. And by the way, anyone out there, I'm telling you right now, Jimmy was 4 for 4. I gave up. I was on the internet cheating, and I was giving Jimmy titles, and he got 4 for 4. So I'll start with this one. Yeah. Give me 10 of Backlund's opponents in Madison Square Garden. Obviously, we didn't get to see a lot of those stuff. But give me 10. Give me 10 of Backlund's opponents. Let's see if you remember his matches. I mean, some are pretty easy.
Well,
10 should be pretty easy for you.
I don't know about 10, but let me do an overview of what I remember. I remember Backlund Patterson. I actually do remember that because I was just starting to tune in, and the Intercontinental Belt was getting underway and stuff like that. Soon thereafter or during it. I just remember that he fought with Patterson, and like we all know, those were 4 straight matches at the Garden. The only time that somebody fought Bob for the belt, I think, that many times. So you got that going on. I remember Backlund having a clash with Patera, and Patera was Intercontinental Champion at the time. This was the beginning of the, Intercontinental Belt means something, Mike. It's like, okay, now here comes Patera. I remember
you're going old school, bro. You're going old school.
Yeah. I will never forget, obviously, the Morocco. I mean, we saw him fight Morocco. What was that, Texas Death Style at Madison Square Garden?
Texas Death Match, yeah.
By the way, okay, you brought up the point earlier. What was the sexy match of the night besides the Backlund Morocco Texas Death Match? It was the Battle Royal, right?
Yes,
What were
that's
you?
right. Yep.
What were you more? Here's a great question. What were you more excited to see that night? The Battle Royal or Morocco Backlund in the Texas Death Match?
That's a tricky question. I think both, because if you remember, most of the rest of the card was shits, right? It was like really bad matches, like Mario Mancini against the Stalker. You know what I mean? That type of match.
Right, the usual.
I'm not saying that was the match, but you know what I mean.
Right.
It was like all the guys in the Battle Royal was like, Jose Luis Rivera against Johnny Rods type of thing. You know what I mean?
Right.
Not that Johnny isn't awesome, but you get where I'm coming from.
Right.
Good question though. Morocco. I think Morocco Backlund, even though I love that Battle Royal, was so good, man. That was so good.
It was.
Battle Royal.
It had the great ending of Fuji and Saito being the last two and bowing to each other and splitting the money, and the Garden was so pissed. It was fantastic. It was great.
Phil brought up Backlund against Ventura, and I said, Phil, the Garden match I remember because Adonis lost in 2 matches, right? The second match Adonis lost. The next matches was the East-West connection. It was Ventura in a Sunday matinee, and I couldn't go, and I was a huge Ventura guy. But Backlund finished them in like 4 minutes or 5 minutes.
It was very underwhelming. What an underwhelming. You know what, though, Mike? It's coming out now over all these years, and I guess it must be so. Jesse couldn't work for shit.
Yeah.
He couldn't work for shit. And
you hit it right on the head.
Yeah, and if Backlund's making short work of you, I mean, Bob could go with a paper bag for an hour. So, it says a lot about Jesse. Michael, I don't remember the exact circumstances, but I remember when all the kids jumped in the ring with Bob. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The whole, he had the belt up in the air and stuff, and all the kids were dancing around him and stuff like that. What else do I remember about Bob Backlund? I remember Bob Backlund beating Sergeant Slaughter at the Comac Arena because I was there. That was fantastic. And Sarge did a little Cobra Clutch challenge rods before the match. It was pretty cool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was pretty. Johnny almost got out of it, man. He had the arm going up and everything. He's grinding. He's trying. And by the way, Johnny Rods had some big ass arms. Didn't he?
He's a big dude, man. Big dude.
He had some big ass arms. That's why in those days, if you had a Johnny Rods towards the bottom of the card, you're not getting a scrub, for God's sakes. You're getting Johnny Rods.
I'm going to give you one of my favorite matches. Was Backlund against Playboy Buddy Rose. Until I watched it on the network and I said,
Great match. Buddy Rose could go. Backlund could go. Dude, that was also great matches. They were. All right,
here's the trivia. Here's the trivia. Match one at the Garden. Who won? Adonis or Backlund, and how did they win in match one?
Did Adonis win by disqualification? Because
you got it, man. Damn.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Here's a $1 million question. What was the second match?
What was that? Was that a special match? Did they have a special kind of? They did. They did. Wow. Oh God, what was the stipulation, bro? Do you remember? I know you know the answer because you're probably looking at it, but do you remember?
Well, no, I'm not. I'm not looking at it, and I'm going to risk it because I'm 99.9% sure. I'm going to ask someone in the chat to confirm this. I believe it was a lumberjack match.
You know what?
Someone can confirm that.
I think right.
I'm right.
And Joe LeDuc rolls him back in. Oh, Sweet Hansen. Oh, he's rolling him back in. Yeah, something like that.
All right, Jimmy, a little news.
Yeah.
Cowboys quarterback Dak Prescott under investigation for alleged 2017 sexual assault. Dak Prescott is now being investigated for his involvement in alleged sexual assault that took place in Dallas. The Dallas police have confirmed the alleged incident occurred in a parking lot at a strip club, XTC Cabaret, around February 2nd, 2017. It comes days after Prosper, Texas police opened an investigation into the Dallas Cowboys quarterback's claims that he was extorted. Jimmy?
Well, we can't scream for due process for one person and not for another one. This is 7 years ago, from what I'm seeing. Why is it only being investigated so thoroughly now? Someone could possibly need money. I'll believe it when it's all played out. In the meantime, I'll Dak Prescott with the same respect I would treat Vince McMahon or anybody else who's been accused of something. Let the due process play out. And I'd like to get it in, since we're talking about him, as a lifetime New York Jet fan, for the Cowboy fans who hate Dak Prescott and he doesn't do this right, he doesn't do that right. All I know is every year you have 11 or 12 wins, and as a Jet fan, I would kill for that kind of quarterback. Anyway, so that's where I'm at with Dak Prescott. I hope it's not true. And
do you think Lee Cole's a Cowboys fan?
What's up?
Do you think Lee Cole's a Cowboy fan?
Actually, I don't know if you know this, but his favorite team is the Tennessee Ticklers. Did you ever hear of them? You don't? Do you know who they? You're not aware of them?
No, I have never heard of them.
They play in a professional toe touch football league.
No, but I'm being serious. Like, how come they're not screaming about Dak Prescott? How come you're not making YouTube videos about Dak Prescott? Is it favoritism? That's all I'm saying. I agree with you, due process, but come on. I know I'm such a Vince McMahon mark. Do
you really? Oh, shame on you. Do you really expect him to talk about Dak Prescott? The only reason he would do that.
I'm not even talking about him, Jimmy. I'm talking about everybody.
Us right now and yeah. What was that?
I'm talking about anybody. They don't talk about it, right? Everything's Vince McMahon.
Right, I guess. I mean, this is the first time hearing about the Dak Prescott situation, so I don't know how much internet chaos is going on there. I would tend to think a lot of people don't like Dak Prescott, the quarterback, and that's a lot of really disgruntled Cowboy fans. So if he's going to get attacked, he might just very, very well get attacked by his own friendly fire, if that happens.
I kind of have to tend to agree with you, man. How about this? Nebraska woman accused of using a pump glitch to get $27,000 worth of gas. A woman in Lincoln, Nebraska, is facing a felony charge, a theft charge, after allegedly took advantage of a gas pump glitch to get more than $27,000 worth of free fuel. Dawn Thompson, 45, was arrested on March 6th and charged with one count of theft by unlawful taking of $5,000 or more.
Now, hold on. This math doesn't make any sense. All right. First of all, if a gas is from a gas pump, and if it's a gas pump, if it's from a gas pump glitch, how did you possibly accumulate 27,000? Them all pull up with their 18-wheelers, and it backed up traffic 17 miles into the next state for you to get.
I was thinking the same thing. I was thinking, did she know that there was a glitch in that particular pump and kept going back? I mean, what was the deal there?
And the management didn't notice that one of their pumps was so defective that 27,000. None of this makes any sense, dude. I mean, just from a math side of it, I don't get that at all. That makes no sense. They must have been watching AEW wrestling or something instead of manning the pump. I don't know what's going on there.
Last night on Dark Side of the Ring was the story of Terry Gordy. What were your thoughts on the great Terry Gordy?
Well, first things first. Have you seen it? Because I haven't seen it.
What watched it this morning. I listened to it this morning. I wouldn't be fair to watch. I was at work, so I put it on YouTube. Sound, it was terrible, but I just pretty much listened to most of it. What did I think?
Yeah.
I was really starting to get really disappointed in the dark sides. This was pretty good. This wasn't too bad. A lot of stuff I didn't know about the guy, though. I thought I knew a lot about him, and I really didn't.
Right. What was the what was the dark side of Terry Gordy? Since what was it that made this?
Parts of it was Gordy. He was a big, heavy guy. Worked the Texas area, obviously, with the Von Erichs, right?
Right.
Part of one of the greatest factions of all time, our fabulous Freebirds.
Right.
Everybody knew how hot the Von Erichs and the Freebirds were. They spoke about the Freebirds coming up here to New York. And guys, I'm going to tell you, I have a DVD. I was telling Benny this one day. I might even told this to you, Jimmy. It's a DVD from the drummer who drummed Bad Street USA.
Nice.
And it has like all these stories with the Freebirds and stuff. But it's like I got to burn it off the DVD. If I do, I'll put it out for members. I'll load it up onto the channel for members to see. It's pretty cool. That's why I've told you that unbelievable story where supposedly Vince McMahon contacted Michael Hayes and said, "Hey, we want you to represent rock and wrestling. We're going to have you take the belt off of Hogan."
Interesting. Very interesting.
I don't believe it. But anyway, with Gordy, he hires Richard Simmons to lose weight. Trims down.
All right.
Goes to Japan with Stan Hansen, wrestling with Hansen. I didn't even know that. I thought it was Dr. Death. He did wrestle with Dr. Death, but never knew he was with Hansen. He tore 2 meniscus in his knees and continued to wrestle the entire year. But then he got hooked on painkillers. So on the first round, he OD'd, went to the hospital. He almost died. He recovered. And then I'm only half listening, so people could correct me on this one too. Flying back from Japan with Dr. Death, he ODs on the plane and dies. And somehow they revive him. And they keep him alive. He's coming from Japan. They're keeping him alive on this plane. And they finally land, I think, in Texas or something, and they bring him to the hospital. But his brain is so fried when he finally recovers, he's like a child. Like he can't. I didn't even know this. And he wrestled. Do you remember when he came to the WWE as the Executioner and he wrestled the Undertaker?
No, I don't. And obviously, it was like a here and gone kind of thing.
Well, they said he was so fried from that he couldn't really even wrestle anymore. They were doing him favors, and they really wanted it to work out. And then, eventually he somehow he has a blood clot and he has a heart attack at 40 years old.
Wow. Terry Gordy was a badass, obviously. He had that "I'm just large" period. He didn't have to hit the roids or anything like that. He was just a big beat down of a man. And he was obviously a legend in the wrestling circles. I had no idea about all of that stuff. That sounds absolutely awful. That's what it came down to for Terry Gordy. I mean, by the way, Mike, I kind of do believe the Michael Hayes thing, because I always felt that Michael Hayes could be a world champion. So weird as it may sound,
really,
yeah, dude. I'm sorry, Michael Hayes in his prime had a great look. Was a strutter to the max, man. I mean, the song Strutter might be about a chick from Kiss, that song Strutter, but if anybody was a strutter, it was Michael Hayes. He was like almost like a David Lee Roth. That guy had everything going on there. I don't know about ring technician, obviously, but I could have seen Michael Hayes being a world champion. He certainly had the gift of gab. That's for shit sure.
I can't see it, man. How do you take the belt off Hogan? That might have been one of the biggest mistakes I've ever heard. If they would have
not off Hogan, like yeah, no, not off Hogan. I agree with that, But as I'm talking about his time in the NWA, I felt that he could have done that.
They did tell the story. They did tell the story that they got Andre the Giant didn't like them because they kept showing up late. I guess Andre the Giant was an agent, also. Okay. So he reported to Vince McMahon, and when Vince called them in the office, they were so fucking drunk. Vince was like, "Get out, you're fired."
Right.
So I don't know. I don't know how you blow an opportunity when you come up here.
They already. And they should know coming from another territory like that they've already got whether it's fair or not, they've already got a strike or two against them, because Vince is really going to lean on the guys who didn't come up through him. That's only natural. So,
I don't know how you go to the WWE and you're not prepared.
Right? They fucked up. I mean, we've seen things in our lifetime. I mean, recently, like. I know that she's not news anymore, but don't you still wonder what the hell Tessa Blanchard did to her career? That she should be fighting Charlotte, dude. It's like she basically blew up her own career, it seems. You know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah, but Jimmy, I honestly think that wrestling was not high on her list.
I think her ego got in the way, bro. I think wrestling was all she probably lived and breathed. Why? What else is high on Tessa Blanchard? She was a natural. Well, is there something else that I'm missing about her personal life that she should
getting married? I don't, dude. I don't know. Is Tessa Blanchard even wrestle anymore?
No, nobody will work with her, bro. I mean, that's what it seems like. It seems like nobody wants to have anything to do with her. Wow, what did you do?
What a wasted career. How about this one, Jimmy? You ready for this one?
Yeah, what do you got?
Came out today. Ronda Rousey slams former WWE CEO Vince McMahon and the company's history with women in a new book. Ronda Rousey has a scathing take on Vince McMahon. Rousey acknowledged exiting sexual misconduct allegations against a disgraced former WWE chairman in her new book. Rousey, who was signed full-time to the WWE from 2017 to 2023, criticized McMahon and the company for its historically poor treatment of women in her new autobiography, Our Fight. The former UFC champion and multi-time WWE title holder compared McMahon's grip on the WWE to a sinister emperor. What is it, Palatine? Whatever, from Star Wars?
Palpatine from Star Wars.
Palpatine. Yeah. There you go. Yeah. In Star Wars franchise. It's hard sometimes to know where the evil, unethical slimeball character of Vince McMahon play out for the camera ends and the actual questionable, ethical, many times sued and multiple times accused of sexual misconduct Vince McMahon begins. Rousey writes in an excerpt of a book published by Inside the Ropes ahead of the April 4th release. Rousey criticized the company's history for holding bra and panty matches in which the winner was declared by stripping her opponent down to their underwear. The last bra and panties match took place in 2007 episode of Raw. Jimmy.
Wow. What a bitter, bitter bird Ronda Rousey is. And most folks will not have my take, but this is where it all started for Ronda Rousey hating on the WWE. We, you, Mike, me, and some of those folks at home had the nerve to boo Ronda Rousey. Remember her face when we booed her? Do you remember the face that she gave? She looked like she was going to soil herself. She was so upset. And that's where, believe it or not, in my mind, it really began with Ronda. Here's the facts. If Ronda had never been given the opportunity to have a WWE career, her MMA time is so far in the rearview mirror that nobody would even be talking about her. The money she's about to make from her book. Notice that every complaint and every headline is about the WWE. You're not hearing crap about the UFC. She's touting off all the venom towards the company that made her really disgustingly wealthy. And by the way, if she's so against sexism in wrestling, wrestle Nikki Bella, who's clearly a diva first and a wrestler second, Mike. Did she or did she not take a check for that? Did I miss something there?
She did, but I actually liked that match, Jimmy, I'm telling you.
It was a good match, but I'm just saying, though, and if all this shit was going on, where were you, Ronda, when everything was happening? Why are you saying something now?
Well, because it's easy pickings, dude. The WWE is easy pickings right now. Everybody's going to say,
of course it is.
You know what, Jimmy? I take your take. You're 100% right. She's bitter. She got her money. She's bitter. She went to some independents. That's not working. AEW's not signing her. She's bitter and she's angry. Ronda Rousey will be passé by 2025. No one will remember her name.
Right. Yep. She's cashing in while she still can, and I find it hilarious that she's so bitter about, a profession that made her really stay relevant and made her very, very wealthy.
You hit it on the head.
Mike, I know you don't mind it.
When you were working for them, like you said, when you were working for them, where were you then? You didn't open your mouth. It's like, stop it already.
Just like with the San Martino Graham horse shit years and years and years ago. Where the hell were you then? What were you doing when all this crap was going on? Oh, you knew about nothing? Oh, it's before your time. Bullshit. If it's been going on, it's probably always been going on. So cut the crap. Everybody here is just bitter as shit. By the way, Mike, I got to get this in. I know you don't mind the word fake as much as I do. I'm sure you have a certain level of disdain when people try to play off wrestling as being just a bozo show. But I hate the fact that Ronda used the word fake. When they asked her about, the differences between the ladies in the MMA world and the ladies in professional wrestling, she's like, well, it's all fake over there. Fuck you, Ronda. No, seriously, Mike. Fuck you, Ronda. You got to
give her her flowers.
Fuck that. You
got to give her flowers, though. The fact that if she didn't come into the WWE, she pushed women's wrestling to a whole new level.
Of course she did. But you know something, though? That's another reason I've got a problem with her stance. How about a little Lou Gehrig right about now? How about a little Joe DiMaggio right about now? She could be thinking about the fact of what you just said and selling that for the rest of her life. I'd rather be remembered as a true pioneer, which is what she was with the WWE. Yep. You're right about that. I'd rather be remembered as a true pioneer than a mouthy, alleged truth teller who's really just bitter as can be. I don't think that that's a good look long-term for her. Enjoy your quick cash in with your book. The Vince haters will probably gobble it up like they gobble up their TV dinners from mom and have a great life, because you're going to run out of juice with that. That's not long-term. I've lost for example, Mike, when we do conventions over the years in the future and stuff like that, because the show, you just can't kill this show. Fuck that. Yeah, it can't be killed. But, I don't want to meet Ronda. I don't care. I'll walk right past the table. You understand what I'm getting at? That's where you're hurting yourself long term, because some of us really adore this thing that you called fake and are taking a giant, crap on, and you are taking a crap on wrestling. You think you're not, but you are. You're taking a crap on wrestling. You called everything fake, and tomorrow when people like Bubba Ray hear what we had to say tonight, I hope he remembers that. She called you fake, Bubba. You know what I'm saying, bro? You're all being called fake by Ronda. What? Because she, got the snot kicked out of her by, what was it, Holly Holm or whatever the hell? I bet CM Punk
very good. Very good comments, Jimmy. Really good comments. I'd like to thank the band that sings the theme song for Monte The Pharaoh and Jimmy Farrow, along with his partner Bart Griggs, make up the band Wisteria Hall. Wisteria Hall sings such great songs as In My Dreams, This Life, Not Far Behind, Here Comes the Rain. You can find their music on the Wisteria Hall YouTube page, which you do what, Jimmy?
After you finish drinking your root beer, you like and subscribe.
There you go. And if you didn't know it, you were watching Long Island's #1 pro wrestling broadcast. That's just on the Monte The Pharaoh YouTube page, Monte The Pharaoh Facebook Live page. Here's on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Anchor, Twitch TV, Monte The Pharaoh page. And if you're lucky enough to live in New York, we're on channel 115 every Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. and Saturday at 11:30 a.m. and channel 20 Tuesdays at 7:30 p.m. We're no longer on that other network because we are now in litigation with them, as they they owe us some substantial amount of money, and I've been holding off about discussing this. But Jimmy and I have been going through this now for a bit, and we've got some lawyers in place, and we're going to start fighting back now. We tried to take the high road on this, but we're going to start fighting back. So we will be sharing this information with our family out there. We're going to take a quick commercial break. and Joe from What a Day is going to come on,
What a
and we're going to discuss
day!
the second half with Joe. Joe wanted to come on as Missy Beefcake was on, but considering we were having some production issues, Missy Beefcake will be on next week. Jimmy, you'll finally get to meet Missy, which will be great.
Mike, did you know that Joe went to school with Missy?
I did not know that Joe went to school, but when I asked Missy about Joe, she did remember him.
Okay. There's a nugget.
And she's got, well, we'll save that for next week. But she's got a story she's going to tell. So stay tuned next week. She's got, Ruh-roh is right. I'm not even going to ask Joe about it here, but I'll tell you what, Joe, if those accusations are real, Joe, you may be in some trouble. You're in Vince McMahon land, buddy. That's all I'm talking about. We'll be back after this commercial break, and Joe from What a Day will join us.
Ruby.
The Monte and the Pharaoh Show is brought to you by...
Because wine is your second favorite four-letter word. California wine, New York attitude. Good fucking wine.
Yeah.
Tired of that same old breakfast, lunch, and dinner? Same old tasting scrambled eggs, burger, that dinner steak, ribs, or pork chops? Why not add a little bit of spice or just a touch of heat to make the difference? Change that scrambled egg with a little bit of Johnny Fabulous's John Cena Sr.'s $1 Million Jalapeno Hot Sauce. Great on burgers, steaks, chops, and those barbecued ribs.
And Nitro's Garage for all your automotive needs. Call 646-675-2349. That's 646-675-2349. For all your automotive needs, Nitro's Garage. Ask for Jack.
Do you treat your dog as part of the family? Well, so do we.
No.
What happened? We're back? So we're back live as we're talking about. It's fine.
That's fine. Right.
So let me ask you something, Jimmy. Since I love your Pharaoh Iron Maiden made name, which is, I'm a little jealous. You got special treatment on this show now. You got the Wahoo Saloon, which is fucking awesome. When I come and visit you, I'm hanging out in the Wahoo Saloon. By the way, is Coach? Right. You mentioned Coach. Will Coach be joining Monte the Pharaoh, the great coach from ESPN?
Absolutely. I talked to him after I talked to you today, and I we'll work out a day, and he'll come over and hang out in the saloon for an hour with us.
Let's see if we can do it next Thursday. That'd be great. If you can pull that off.
I will check.
So, who made more of a difference in heavy metal, Iron Maiden or Judas Priest?
Oh wow! You know what sucks about my answer? It's going to piss off half the people out there, and it's going to make the other half go, "Yeah, that's right." If we're playing the long game, Iron Maiden. If we're playing the long game, because it's over 50 years now that Iron Maiden first formed back in '75, and you've got, over the course of the last 50 years, you've got 17 albums, and almost all of them are either amazing to forever. There's a few stinkers in there, but every band's going to have that. Judas Priest is for the back in the day was more popular than Iron Maiden, but Judas Priest was also playing a much more if I could even use the term, because it doesn't really apply to Judas Priest, but as far as metal, they had commercial sensibility. They were more simple with their formula. Songs like Breaking the Law were Get In and Get Out, Living After Midnight with the catchy chorus, Get In, Get Out, Another Thing Coming, same situation. Priest was a little bit more pop, and I hate using that because it's not really accurate when it comes to metal, but as far as radio and MTV sensibility. But in the long game, it's Iron Maiden, and it's actually not even close.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but I think during the MTV era, Priest definitely had more of an influence on the metal world, right? I mean, the one album. Good.
I think they were played more, and I think that they sold more, but it is kind of apples and oranges because Maiden was also playing the same venues that Priest was playing, and they were selling out too. So it's just,
How
come
you don't?
Go ahead.
How come you don't think Heading Out to the Highway got enough play? Like they didn't. Like that was a great album, and they didn't hit it with that album. It missed.
I know.
It missed.
I know the answer to that. And it's weird. Don't forget, back in those days, we were very, very critical. Now we weren't as much, but a lot of people were very critical on your art in the whole thing. Have you ever remembered having an argument? Because I had many back in the early '80s with someone who liked Rush and thought Rush because on paper, Rush is superior on paper to almost every other band that they were up against, So yeah, I would get in arguments with the validity of Rush compared to the Beatles. I'd be like, what are you talking about? It's the song at the end of the day. It's the song at the end of the day, not the complexity of it. If it's complex and still does commercial success, that's amazing. But you can't compare the Beatles catalog to Rush. It's silly. Just from a commercially successful aspect, it's just being historically ignorant,
I'm shocked that someone would even put that argument with you. That's ridiculous. Listen, let's bring in Joe from What a Day. Let's bring in Joe from What a Day. Joe, thanks for joining us. So glad to have you on the show, buddy.
What a day! What a day! What a day! I want to sing some Beatles songs now. I want to hold your hand.
Okay.
What's your favorite Beatles song?
Oh, he went from the high note.
What's that? Ooh. Oh my God! There's that one. I want to hold you here, and the other one. Jesus.
That's a good song.
Early? Give me one line, and I'll name it for you.
It's not.
You got a line?
No, they do it live too on the Ed Sullivan Show.
I will tell you this, Joe. I will tell you this. What? Thank God you're not doing a spot for the Beatles right now.
Hold on, let me check.
Did I want to hold your hand? All my loving. They did all my loving. I want to hold your hand, and I think she loves you on the Ed Sullivan Show.
Oh my God, Help was a good one too. Oh my God, I can't believe this.
Well, Mike, my favorite song from the Beatles is "A Day in the Life."
Great song.
Great song. You guys know that song, right? I read the news today.
I have a soft spot in my heart for Something.
Something is a great song.
Let me see.
Hey, do you guys know the song from Led Zeppelin called "The Rain Song"?
I saw her standing there. That's the name of it.
What was that?
I saw her standing there.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's great. That's Paul. That's fantastic.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
So what's going on here? Where's my high school comrade tonight? She's not here tonight?
She heard you were here. Uh-oh.
No, she's coming next week, Joe, and we're gonna finally hook you two up. That was the plan today, and we're gonna have a little fun with it. But
just to let our visitors here and our viewers know, I went to high school with Missy Beecake. Just want to let you guys know that.
Thanks for telling us.
Breaking news, folks.
Where's the Joe, let me ask you this. You've joined the Monte and the Pharaoh channel, and we're so glad to have you as part of the family. But the one thing that when we bring on guys that come on the channel like yourself, people don't know you, right? I mean, people that have watched Jimmy and I for the last 6 years or whatever, we've told every story that, about our lives. Like they know everything about us at this point.
Sure. They do.
Where do you, Joe, tell us a little bit about where you came from, your family, and then how did you get into radio?
All right. So basically I grew up 8 miles south of Boston a city called Quincy, Mass, named after the presidents, John Adams. A kid who had a voice growing up. And a matter of fact, in high school, in English class, they always wanted me to stand up and read like a page or two that was going on because I put that radio vibe in it. You know, I made the history books sound more interesting than they were. So I guess I had that gift. So after high school, I went into the Navy. I went into the communications, but somehow I ended up being a cook. And I loved it because it had the most liberty when you went to port and all that stuff. I went over to the Mediterranean, Italy, all that stuff.
Well, thank you for your service too, by the way, Joe. I did not know that about you.
Yep, I was a Navy guy. You know what Navy stands for, right? Never again volunteer yourself. But after the Navy, I got out there. I worked for a local newspaper because, you know, I love news. I was into that vibe. The Persian Gulf War was taking place, and Quincy had a newspaper that was printed in late afternoons. So with the time difference, it was all about timing. Whenever something happened in Iraq, we were able to get the newspaper out in the evening for the latest news. And it was pretty cool because we used to have dignitaries come to this newspaper place. We had generals that were involved. You know, we had people from the White House come in for, you know, this is pre-internet days, guys, don't forget. They did everything face to face. Ted Kennedy was always in there, John Kerry, you know, politicians like that. So I was always involved in like public relations, so to speak. And then one day, Phil will probably know, there was a lady there in the entertainment section. Her name was Dawn Marie, and she was the voice of a local channel here. And she said, you need to go to broadcasting school. And when I heard that from her, she was very well known. She had a voice. You know, and I was like, okay. So I went to broadcasting school. I went to Northeast Broadcasting School, and it was a great experience. I ended up being an intern for a morning show, Lauren and Wally, on WVBF. And then I ended up having my own show before that from 3 a.m. to 6 a.m. So, you know, that was what I did. And I worked for Live 105.5 out of the Berkshires, which is Western Massachusetts on the border of New York. I used to do things with the Albany Arena. I think it was the Pepsi Arena back then, and introduced a lot of acts, Backstreet Boys, people like the NSYNC, those types of things. But one day I was doing an afternoon show on a Friday, and Toni Braxton was coming to town, and I knew for a fact there was rumors going on. I asked her point blank on the radio. I said, "Are you dating Curtis Martin?" And she said, "Yes." The football player. And that was the first time she publicly said that she was going. Phone lines lit up. The general manager's coming in going, oh my God, I can't believe you asked that question. People Magazine took a quote from me. I was in People Magazine back then. So I've always been involved in it. You know, I kind of got away from it. You know, real life kicks in. You get married, you have kids, can no longer travel places. But unfortunately, I lost my wife at a young age, my first wife, to skin cancer. So then I was with the two kids. They were 6 and 4. You know, I stepped away from it for a while. And fast forward to 2014, kids are grown up and everything. I meet Joanne Baby Cakes, and she looked at me and says, you need to get back into broadcasting. Stop with the bullshit jobs. Get into broadcasting. And it's because of her I got back in. So I started a What a Day show on YouTube. I reconnected with my mentor, Bill Apter, and he did a lot for me. He spread the word. He was getting big. He had onewrestling.com YouTube channel. I was contributing to that. And from there, just grew up. And then when COVID hit, it was very easy to get a wrestler to come on because everybody was home doing nothing. And the age of Zoom calls and Skype and everything else turned into a big thing. And that's how I got my feet wet doing that. My first interview was Cheeto Santana. I had him on a phone, and I put the phone up to the microphone. It was kind of funny. And that was technically my first podcast. And then I said, you know what? I got to do a video one. And then I had Francine on. And then I had, right when she got fired and let go from WWE, I had Maria Kanellis on, who had interesting things to say because she was pregnant. She was with her husband, Mike Bennett, literally had the 24/7 title a week before that. I interviewed her and she got fired. She got let go. So she had a lot to say on that. And I just always been involved with it. And you know, we moved from the Northeast. We lived outside of Boston. we found a huge Victorian home in a beautiful town called Centerville, Iowa. Believe it or not, it was like throwing a dart at a book. So we came down to Centerville. I started promoting Centerville on my show. And then, you know, I was kind of, wrestling was on the side a little bit because it's very competitive. You guys know that. Wrestling sites, wrestling dirt sheets, very competitive. So I started doing the local vibe down here. And then you guys caught on to the show. Benny got caught. I've always been in touch with Benny for a few years now, the player. And he said, let's start a podcast. And we started the baseball podcast, I think November. And from there, Mike, you enjoyed my shows. You enjoyed, you know, the camaraderie. And then Baby Cake said it. She goes, I think you found a good fit. You found a great channel to be on. And you guys came along. You put me on to 30. That worked out great. And then you messaged me, Mike, and said, hey, I think your show needs to be on our channel. And that's what happens. And this is how it works. The path is crazy. The journey is great. You have to enjoy the journey because you don't know where it takes you. We all have lives. We all have different things, different stories, good and bad, tragic, all that stuff. You overcome that. And I do what I love now. I'm on a great YouTube channel. We're getting subscribers every day, new ones. We're putting the word out. It's growing. I think this channel is going to do wonderful things. I think we're going to have a lot of different type of elements, not just wrestling, but we kind of mix it all in, and that's good. I think that's what separates Monte and the Pharaoh channel. You guys are doing more than just wrestling. Yes, it's great. That's the platform that's got you here, and you stick with it. But then when you have a show like What a Day come on during the week, you get a recap show, all that stuff. It just works out. It's a good gel for this day and age to have. And I think that's where Monte and the Pharaoh is going to succeed. There's no doubt about it. And I am very, very grateful and humbled, Mike and Jimmy, to be on this. So, you know, thank you very much for allowing me to be on. It's you guys are letting me do what I love to do. It is hard work. You've seen the behind the stuff, Mike. A lot of graphics, a lot of phone calls. I got the itch now. You know, when I'm reaching out to people, I just had, you know, U.S. Open bowling, PBA bowling. Kyle Troop was on. He is the son of Guppy Troop, who bowled against the Mike Albee and all those guys, Pete Weber. And I remember those guys growing up, crazy outfits and all that. And Kyle Troop texted me right back. He goes, I'll go on your show. And I was like, okay, awesome. And now I talk to him daily. We text a lot. Where are you going this week? You know, he was on the Legacy tournament this past weekend in Phoenix. Bowling is getting popular again, believe it or not. Women's bowling is getting very popular now. Their style has changed. It's almost like wrestling, Mike. They are makeup, legs, all that stuff. They're putting on a great show.
I'm kind of into that naked bowling, dude. I like the naked bowling. That's nice.
What a great story to come across. You know, and when I researched that story, there were other places that do this. I was shocked. It's a thing. It is a thing. And, you know, that got me into the nudist website when you're new to this. And they have the
what is going on here?
This was on What a Day, Jimmy. I'm telling you, they had it like
you gotta stop. You know, what are you doing?
They have frequently asked questions like, if you get
wait a minute, Joe. What's the catchphrase? Naked bowling. We've gone to the gutter. I mean, what's their catchphrase?
You gotta get your balls out of the gutter, Jimmy. Come on.
This is awful, man. What is that, like 4 holes in the ball and extra drilling for everyone?
You gotta go to the nudist one. It has these questions like for people like us who've never heard of it. Oh, what happens? We know nature happens. So if you get an erection,
come on,
they tell you, you can walk around with it, or you can go in the water and try and get rid of it, put a towel over it. They tell you these things.
That's great.
You know, they have other ones like eyes up here. We all know we got a vagina and a penis. So, you know, don't be looking at everybody. If you want to do that, just grab a magazine and go home. And they tell you all sorts of crazy stuff. It's funny. It's on my What a Day. Yeah, nude bowling. It's coming up in April, and the news media down there is eating it up. Absolutely eating it up.
I friggin' love it, man.
Mike, if you knew
some of the girls bowling bare feet.
Mike, if you go nude bowling, I'm having my eyes removed.
Yeah, well, no, you don't. Yeah, you don't want me naked bowling. That's for sure.
You got to see some of the pictures. They have no shame, man. Some of these guys are 350 pounds bowling, and it's like, whoa.
You know what I was thinking? You know
what I was thinking? Real quick.
Yeah, good. Go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I was going to say, Jimmy, I want to read Phil's question. He has a quick quiz question for you. Do you know what Zeppelin is referring to in the song The Ocean?
What is Zeppelin referring to in the song The Ocean?
Oh, baby cake.
You got to find out.
You hear that question?
Got no time to pack my bags. My foot's outside the door.
Yeah, she's a Led Zeppelin.
No, I can't say I can't. Does Phil at least have the kindness to supply the answer? I mean, I'm thinking about the lyrics.
What's the question again, Mike? What's the question again?
What's the meaning
behind
the
song? What is Led Zeppelin referring to?
What is Led Zeppelin referring to? The ocean is their fan base. The ocean is their fan base.
Oh, okay. Very cool.
Is that the answer?
Very cool.
No, I don't know, but we're going to find out.
He's talking about, you know what? The line, I got no time to pack my bags. My foot's outside the door. It probably means the hecticness of constantly traveling from place to place. I can see
that's the answer. The ocean is their fan base. Baby Cake says they're groupies. They're groupies.
It could be.
All right, guys. You know? I want to hit the subject of this show, which is wrestling's craziest stories. Okay. Well, considering Vince McMahon is engaged with many people and we're having so many issues in wrestling with all these rumors, we thought we'd dig up some of the top 15 rumors, and maybe they're not even rumors. So let's see what you guys think. We'll open up with you, Jimmy, at number 15, and then Joe, you weigh in afterwards.
Okay.
Rey Mysterio and Jennifer Aniston were in love.
Okay. Rey Mysterio and Jennifer from Friends? That Jennifer?
Yes, that Jennifer.
Huh. Okay, I only have one question. Mask or no mask during intimate moments?
You know how I feel about that. Mask always on.
Okay,
always on.
So if she fell in love with Rey with the mask on, possible. Rey with the mask off? Can I see your ID? Can I see your ID, please? You know, I mean, no. Number one, I don't buy it. But number two, hey, you never know. We've seen Stranger. Who is that incredible model that's married to Seal? So we've seen some strange things in this world, if you know what I'm saying. Yeah, I'm picking on you, Seal. I'm sorry. I don't think you're that great as a musician either. I really suck. I know. But
Joe, any possibility? Joe, any possibility that Aniston and Rey Mysterio were together?
I would say yes. I know he appeared on some podcast or radio show. I think we're going back to a long time, like 1997. This happened. There was a National Enquirer story, and of course, back then in the Enquirer.
All right.
Ray did say that he exchanged phone numbers, and he did break kayfabe and showed Jennifer Aniston his face without his mask on backstage at a show. She went to like 3 or 4 shows. There's nothing confirmed about it, but it's a great story. And Ray joked recently on the podcast that he dated Jennifer for a week. So whether that's a storyline or whether that's a rumor,
I wonder if
that's a hell of a couple there. You know, Brad Pitt and her were dating in that time. So
yeah, I wonder. Joe, you think Ray gave her the 619 or what?
I think he gave her the 619 and the 421 and all that stuff. And
very interesting.
I think he gave her the 69. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I was going to say that, but I know it's after 9 where you guys live, right? So we could say shit ass.
All right, Joe. Number 14. Randy Orton defecated in Diva's bags. The Apex Predator's reputation backstage was spotty at best, so much so that many people believed a rumor that Orton had taken a number 2 in a Diva's luggage. The Diva in question, Rochelle Lowen, confirmed that Orton had poured self-tanning lotion and baby oil in a bag. That is still a dumb thing for someone to do, but not as bad as what was rumored. Lowen also said it. I wouldn't have put it past him to shit in my bag. Joe?
I believe it. I believe that 100%. Randy Orton back then was a little wild, if you recall. He had a lot of backstage shenanigans going on, and that's what they did back then. That was like their what do you call it? They used to do that all the time. They used to, play games and stuff, and I believe it. I believe he defecated in her bag as a joke. I don't think he was serious about it, but he was crazy back then. He even tell he drank a lot. He was doing stuff. He doesn't do it now, but he was pretty wild. So I wouldn't put it past him. I think Randy Orton, I think he did a lot of stuff like that. Just like what's his name? Owen Hart used to do a lot of joking around backstage and all that stuff. So I wouldn't put it past him, especially at that era and that time frame. Yeah, I believe it. I would say, I would.
Jimmy?
Okay, well, you know what? I believe in being consistent. Mike, who the hell is Rochelle Lowen? Do you know?
No idea. No idea.
Okay. Let's start with that. Number one. So right away, Bitter Bird. Like, getting back to Rhonda too. Bitter Bird comes into my mind right away. I'm going to defend Randy here. Do I think he was capable of it? Yeah, sure. Why not? Maybe. There's always going to be a maybe because we're speculating here. So maybe, but no, I this sounds like somebody was really pissed off and just wanted to get a soundbite and a payday for an interview because I never heard of her. So I'm going to go with leave Randy alone unless it really, really happened and you got proof. Shut up. That's my
All right. How about this one, Jimmy? Yeah. The Big Show is the son of Andre the Giant. When Paul White joined the WCW in the early 90s, the Giant was first promoted as being the son of the legendary Andre the Giant. WCW dropped the idea after backlash from fans who saw it as disrespectful to the late French wrestler. But many people continued to believe it was true. Aside from their giant names, large statures, and similar attires, two pretty much sharing zero similarities. Jimmy?
Okay. Here's the funny thing. I don't know how many. I know kayfabe had been recently like that. At that point, what are we talking? 96, Mike?
Yeah, about.
At that point, kayfabe had recently had the curtain torn open, and the internet clearly wasn't what it is today. I think it was really still in very much an infant, stage. I could see. Now, at the time, I'm 29, so I know damn well that this isn't Andre's son. But if I'm 12 years old and I don't really know much about nothing and I don't really look at a computer yet, I don't have a cell phone like the kids do today at 12. I don't have any of that stuff. If I'm just looking at show and that's what they're telling me is take yourselves back to when you were 12, 10, 9, when watching wrestling with that childlike fantasy, way that we did back in those days, and boy, wasn't that wonderful when you think about it. But I could see some young kids buying into it, but they obviously knew in real life this is really wrong, and it was wrong. Don't sell yourself as Andre's kid. I mean, Andre was never even WCW anything. What are you doing? So that's my take on the whole thing. I could see some young kids being like, yeah, that's Andre's son. Look at him.
What about you, Joe? Was it a possibility that he was Andre's kid?
I think it's a great storyline. I think it's back then it's believable. Pre like internet, all that stuff. I think the internet was more flooded with just regular stories, and they would throw this out. He was billed as Andre the Giant's son. So same disease. They had acromegaly or something like that. I forget how you pronounce it.
Close enough.
They both had that disease. But the difference is Andre, there was medication back then to stop this, and Andre didn't want to take it. But Big Show has, so it's kind of prolonged his life and so forth. He's living a healthy life now and stuff. And I think Andre, if he took that stuff, may still be around at this point. But Andre was Andre. He did whatever he wanted, whenever he wanted. So, and he could because of his size and his height. But I think it's the big storyline. It's a good storyline.
Dude, I think Andre would have been like 80 years old at this point. Remember imagine an old Andre the Giant?
Yeah, he died at 42. I wonder if he would shrink though, like when you get older, you shrink.
By the way, I got to tell you, I tell this to Jimmy all the time. That Andre the Giant documentary, no matter what, whenever I watch it, I cry every time. It gets me every time.
What gets me? That scene in the airport when people are like around him and looking at him like a circus freak. And he's got that face on, he's going to cry. That gets to me. I hate that. And nobody's around, no friends. Supposedly he traveled a lot with Tim White. Nobody was around him at that time. It might have been in like the late 70s, early 80s, but I get really choked up when I see him walking and they play the music and he's like, everyone just looking at. I think it was in Japan. Everybody was just looking at him like a freak.
What gets me? You mentioned Tim White.
Yeah.
Tim White loved Andre the Giant.
Oh yeah,
and you could see how upset he was that he wasn't there for Andre on the day he passed.
Yeah,
it's heart wrenching.
Yeah.
The way he's like, no man. Forget it. I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even know why you brought it up, Joe.
Hey, Mike,
you brought it up. I didn't bring it up.
I gotta throw this in while it's kind of funny. While we're doing something like that. While we're doing the show, I'm getting a couple of texts from Karen McDaniel inside, and she wanted to let everybody know, first of all, that Rey Mysterio has a very nice face. I was like, okay. And the other thing,
fair enough.
Yeah. Like, I mean, honestly, what I meant by ID was Ray was so young looking back in those days. He looked like a kid.
Did he look like Dominic?
He looked like Jesus. He looked like a little kid back in the early mid '90s or whatever time it was back in those days. Oh, and one other thing important, because Karen's a nurse, and she wrote that. And Mike, I don't know if you knew this, but Big Show does not have the medical condition that Andre had.
Oh,
he doesn't.
Really?
I thought
he does not. And Karen used some word that I can't even pronounce. Acromegaly or something like that.
Acromegaly or something like that.
Something like that. But he does not have the same thing that Andre had. So there's multiple reasons.
The guy's huge.
Well, it's a form of gigantism. It's got to be, but it's not this. It's not the same thing that Andre had. I'm sure there were subdivisions, right, guys, in the medical term for gigantism. So I guess that's the deal. So anyway, thank you, Karen. I feel a little smarter right now.
Thank you, Miss McDaniel.
Yeah, and I wanted to say one other thing, Mike, if I can get it in real fast.
Sure.
When Joe was telling his origins, and how it all started, and took us through all that time, and took us to where he sits with us now, I got the deepest thoughts. So I got to say this fast. Imagine, how does life work if you don't approach me at the school bus stop that day in 1981? You know what I mean? It's like amazing that all these little things happen that bring people together. That's what I took out of that. So I just wanted to throw that.
I always, like Jimmy, you and I have discussed, I always think that if you get somewhere, there's always a beginning, and you always have to respect the beginning. The road we take in life isn't always straight. It may get you to where you're eventually going, but you may go left, right, or whatever. Yeah, you gotta respect what has gotten you there. And I guess Joe, to that point, was when we did the show, we were on another show first, which the host's name was John Sawyer.
Okay.
And you I don't know how well you know Jimmy, but Jimmy is very opinionated, right? Which is great about Jimmy.
I love
Jimmy. Jimmy wants what Jimmy wants, and
we had a great conversation. We had a conversation on the phone today, Jimmy. We had a good conversation on the phone. We got to know each other and stuff. And I love Jimmy. I love his attitude. I love his enthusiasm. Is infectious. He's great. And just to talk about how you guys met at a bus stop and all that stuff. I lived in the Northeast for 50-something years, and I moved 1,600 miles just to get back on a show that's back up in the Northeast.
Right.
So,
weird.
There you go. There you go.
And now we're going to be moving back up to the Northeast, so I'm closer to you guys, so I could probably be in studio at times and all that stuff when we get going again. But that's the path. It's a crazy path. Moving 1,600 miles, starting a show, then you guys reach out, and I'm on the show now, and what's the deal? I'm in southern Iowa right now, 10 miles from the Missouri border. And we're talking now, and you guys are up in New York. I know Jimmy's in Florida, but like you said, you guys met at a bus stop. What if you didn't meet at that bus stop? Where would we'd be all today? It's just crazy.
Right. Yeah. It is pretty wild.
It's the journey.
You know what?
It's the journey.
It's the journey, and if you're lucky enough to live a long enough journey, when you sit back, you find yourself some memories. I'm going to jump a few, Bruce. So if I go ahead, don't let me screw you up. We're going to go to this one. Joe, you'll open up this one.
Sure.
Lex Luger spoiled the potential title win. Lex Luger's big WWE push in 1993 led to many to believe that he would win the title from Yokozuna at SummerSlam. That didn't happen. But when Luger and Brett tied at the following year's Royal Rumble winner, setting up a 3-man tournament for the title. It seemed like the foregone conclusion Luger would beat Yokozuna. Luger lost the match by disqualification by shoving special referee Mr. Perfect, and the fans began grasping at straws, the rationalization that Luger was not going to win the title. The rumors began. The plan called for Luger to win the title, but those plans were changed after he overheard telling people about it in a bar the night before. Luger has said that and spent the night before and about that. So basically, he opened his mouth at a bar, and they said, "You know what? Since you told people, now you're not going to win it." What do you think of that?
I think that's true. I think is it, to get you wrong, the timeline is after that whole situation happened, he showed up. He already had signed a contract or was about to sign a contract with WCW, and I think Vince McMahon got wind of that. But the Lex Express, he was billed. They tried to bill him as the next Hulk Hogan because Hogan had left to go to WCW, and WWE was suffering at the time horrendously with all these circus acts. And, I got hooked on the Lex Express thing. I saw the bus going town to town, filming every week and all that stuff. And then the Intrepid he went on. It did, body slam, Yokozuna and all that stuff. It was a big deal, sure. But I just, Lex had his demons kicking in around that time as well. He had a lot of, I think I read somewhere that he, when he was on the bus, he had a lot of mental issues, doing what he was doing town to town. It was getting to him. And back then, nobody reached out mental health wise. So he started self-medicating and so forth. But I believe it. I think that Vince McMahon got wind of something going down the road that Lex was unhappy, especially if he's at a bar the night before opening his mouth. There you go with the mental health issue. The guy has nobody to talk to. So he goes to the bar and he starts opening his mouth. That's the case in a lot of places now. People don't talk, but they go to the bar, have a couple of drinks, and next thing you know, their life story, this guy inside and out. So I believe it. I think, they tried to build him as the next Hulk Hogan, and as that whole Lex Express, Lex Luger thing carried on, it got kind of monotonous towards the end. And I just think they lost that steamroll and all that stuff. And I think Bruce Pritchard at the time had a lot to do with that as well. Because he knew that Lex wasn't going to be that guy. And, I think at the beginning they thought he was, but maybe they found out something else. So I'd say that they knew. I think the story's true, right down to the core. You mentioned a lot of facts. So I don't think that's a rumor. I think that's true. Definitely.
Jimmy?
I'll tell you what they found out. They found out that Lex Luger, and I can say this with 100% confidence, was an arrogant asshole. They found out that now, what's even more important, Mike, they're coming off the shadow of another guy who was jacked to the hilt, had no respect for the business, couldn't work very well in the ring, the Ultimate Warrior. He was not going to have another Ultimate Warrior. He wasn't going to have a guy who didn't respect the business, treated everybody around him like they were beneath him, couldn't work for shit, and had a fucking attitude. And that's why Lex Luger never took off. Vince believed in the look, but quickly thereafter realized what person was behind the look, and what he saw was another Ultimate Warrior. And Luger never would have taken off the way the Warrior did. The Warrior was lightning in a bottle, but the Warrior was very similar. No respect for the business. I don't give a fuck what anybody says. This is my deal. I'm great and you're shit. This is how I want the match to go. I can't do more than a few moves. I mean, Hogan's told the story many times that during that classic WrestleMania 6 match that the Warrior wanted to end it. He wanted to end it 8 minutes in, and Hogan said, "Oh, no, brother." Like, this conversation went on between headlocks and rest holds. Hogan grabbed him and said, "You're going to go through the whole thing. You're going to lift me over your head. I'm going to kick out. I'm going to leg drop you. You're going to kick out. We're going to see this to the finish line, brother." The one time that Lex Luger was faced with, the reality of taking a real beating was with Brody. What did he do? He climbed up the cage and he ran out. So I think that Lex Luger, one way or the other, his assholism was coming through, and he was never going to be what Vince wanted him to be the first time he looked at that magnificent body of his. The end. Mike dropped out. Wow. All right. Well, you know what? We can keep going, and we'll see what we got here. Let me see what else is on this thing. I don't know if I know Mike was skipping around. Okay, let's go to Joe. Let's go to Hulk Hogan's black eye. It says here Hogan showed up at WrestleMania 9. You remember that shiner that he was sporting there? What was that? The toga party WrestleMania, I believe. WrestleMania 9. He was the team with Brutus the Barber Beefcake. Hey, there's Brutus. To take on Money and end the night as WWE champion. However, much of the attention that Hogan garnered that night was for the shiner above his left eye. So let's get to the rumor. The rumors began to swirl about the cause of the black eye, with the most widespread belief being that he was punched by an angry Macho Man Savage. The truth, according to Hogan and the WWE, is that he was is that he was in a jet ski accident 2 days before WrestleMania. So, Joe, what is it? Did he get punched in the eye by an angry Macho Man? Ooh, you looked at Elizabeth's panties, Or did he get it in a jet skiing accident? I'm trying to picture Hogan doing jet skiing, but okay, all right. And I see Mike is back. I'll bounce it off you two. Mike, you go first.
From what I understand, Savage gave him the black eye over Elizabeth. That's my understanding. Again, I don't know what the real story is. I think the kayfabe story was he was hit during a filming of something, and he got hit in the eye or something.
Wait a minute. Wait, was that the Thunderbirds in Paradise time period?
No, that was after. But he was filming something, and so they gave him an out on that one for sure. But I heard it was Savage that blacked his eye.
Okay.
No, they were filming at the time. Really? No,
they were not.
What year was WrestleMania 9? 91.
That was late. Because he was one in.
It was 94 then, right? If it's WrestleMania 9.
It's 1993, I believe, guys. WrestleMania 9.
Yeah, so he
no holds barred. I was still in the Army.
If you thank you for your service, dude. My guess is he got a black eye. I don't think jet skiing 2 days before a big event. I don't think you're doing the kind of stuff 2 days before a big event because there's a big insurance policy on this. If he's headlining WrestleMania 2 days later, I think Macho Man it could have very well been a fight. Looking at Hogan, if he throws that picture up again, you can tell he lost a lot of weight at that time. I think he was off steroids. I think he was cleansing at that time.
Right.
Yeah, Hogan off the juice was not fun. That was not fun. I didn't like it.
Terrible look.
He didn't look right. I mean,
he didn't look right.
No. I do the old what's his name line there? Oh God, whatever his name is, Rodney Dangerfield. Hey, you look good. You've been sick. That's the kind of deal. I mean, he just did not look good. I thought he was sick, but I believe it. I believe there was a backstage altercation. Look at the type of injury you have. I don't think you'd get that in a jet skiing accident. You get a jet skiing accident, you're flying off the thing. You're not, you know what I mean? But I don't.
I got to ask both of you though, because I thought your guys' internet dropped, but did you guys cover Orndorff's death?
No. I jumped ahead. I figured I would leave that for you. I jumped ahead to Hogan's because you were skipping around a little bit.
But if you look at Hogan's,
so let me ask you, Jimmy.
That's a punch. That is a punch to the face that Hogan got.
Oh, yeah,
definitely. Go ahead, Mike.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, Jimmy, I ask you, Paul Orndorff, Mr. Wonderful, one of wrestling's top heels in the 1980s and feuded with the American era Hulk Hogan. However, Orndorff left the WWE in 1988 and disappeared from wrestling for 7 years. Wondering what happened to Orndorff, fans jumped to the logical conclusion that he must have died. Of course, Orndorff didn't die and eventually returned to wrestling in 2005, where he was inducted to Hall of Fame. But I think he was back in the WCW. I think he appeared back in WCW. You guys remember? Jimmy, do you remember that?
He won the TV title, I think.
I don't remember hearing that Paul Orndorff was dead in the first place, but I think I've heard over the years Orndorff comment about this, though. I could have sworn I did, and Orndorff was like, you read it in the paper, or someone called him And he was like, I'm not dead. So, I mean, I really don't have much of a memory about this other than Orndorff's reaction years later to this when he told the story.
Do you guys remember when he returned? And I guess he must have had that nerve damage in one of his arms. But his he was always a beast. But when he came back, he had that one shrunken arm, and then the other one was big. I remember that. You remember that?
I think that's when the rumor started. I think it was due to a car accident. Now, Paul Orndorff let me tell you a quick Paul Orndorff story. It was 1985 or 86. I'm across the street from the Boston Garden grabbing a slice of pizza after the show, watching wrestling. Paul Orndorff comes in, sits down, talking about stay in school, do sports, don't go towards the drinking and drugging and all that stuff. Really great mentor type stuff. And this guy was built like a brick shithouse. He was huge. He was great. He was in shape. Years later, Travis Orndorff, his son, got a Facebook page. When he passed away, he put up a tribute. And I told that story to Travis, and Travis told me he did that in every town. He would go to a restaurant or something, see a bunch of kids there, and would sit down with them and talk with them and all that stuff. It was kind of neat. But I think the whole thing with Paul Orndorff dying was a rumor based on the car accident he had, that he suffered the nerve damage, and that's what happened. He had a car accident, and then he got out of wrestling, and then he owned a bowling alley. I don't know if you guys knew that. He had a bowling alley in Tampa, I do believe. And that's when they were like, oh, Orndorff's dead. And I think that's where he got the call, was at the bowling alley. I remember reading this. And no, I'm not dead, he said. And, then he made his return and all that stuff. But he stepped away from the business for a while. The car accident didn't help, obviously. But he stepped away. But he kept in shape. He couldn't work out for a while. I remember seeing pictures online posted there that he couldn't work out. He was getting depressed and so forth. But Paul Orndorff was just a phenomenal wrestler. He had the technical ability. He had that baby, his first appearance at the Garden really was, they were calling him Paula Orndorff. This place was packed. It was a 20-man battle royal, and he did the long entrance coming in and all that stuff. And as soon as he got in the ring, Sergeant Slaughter threw him over the top rope. He was literally out there for a minute. And
I'll tell you what.
That was his debut. It was like, what the hell? So
I'll tell you what. I can't think. And help me out if you can name anybody. I can't think of a guy who was more impactful and more of a big-time star and an absolute first ballad legend who's being slowly forgotten about than Paul Orndorff. I don't think that he gets the due that he gets, that he should get. And I feel like for a guy who, Mike, is he or is he not one of the pillars of the first WrestleMania?
He is.
He's on the man cave wall right behind.
But when you think about it, he's fading, and it's like you don't hear people talk about Paul Orndorff very often. I'm trying to think of who else could be in this category. Hacksaw Butch Reed, not as much as who clearly had the stuff. NWA World Champ. Tommy never. He liked wrestling in the Atlanta area. Down south, he liked it there. Period. Did not want the schedule. He said so. Barry Windham. Barry Windham is the greatest all-around everything ever. I mean, my God, he's Barry Windham. He didn't want it either. He's told us this. So it goes both ways. Sometimes Vince just didn't want to put them over, or they didn't want to be here. One or the other, I mean,
you talk about travel schedules. I don't know if you ever read Bobby Heenan's book, but when Hogan and Orndorff had their run, they were wrestling 3 times in one day on the weekend. They would start off Vince got a private jet. It'd be Orndorff and Hogan in the main event on the East Coast. They'd fly to Chicago, be the main event there, hop on the plane again. It's fully dressed too, by the way. They never got undressed. And then end up on the West Coast somewhere for the main event there. They did this for months. That is a hell of a travel schedule. Wrestling 3 times a night on Saturday and flying around. Would you get burnt out? Hell yeah, I would. I mean, that is just insanity. But Vince was grabbing that money. He loved it. They were hot. And Bobby Heenan's got great stories like that in his book. He was a great man, but he was with them. He goes, we were burnt out every weekend. And then we had to do the indie shows during the week, back then it was the gymnasiums and all that stuff. And Paul Orndorff, you talk about the forgotten guy almost in WrestleMania. The same goes for Superfly Jimmy Snuka. He was there for what? I mean, he barely did anything. He was a big name. His name, he was like, he came out with them and all that stuff to even the odds. But, he was forgotten about at that time, too. I mean, Paul Orndorff probably got more popular after WrestleMania. He had a run with Piper.
Yeah, but Joe, I think Snuka was forgotten by design. I think Vince knew that he was trouble, and it was time to get him out of there.
I got some stories I can tell you. The main point personally about Jimmy Snuka and all that stuff, and affected my life. I can tell you stories off the air about that. But Jimmy Snuka had some serious fucked up demons, and he was my idol. Yeah. He was my idol growing up. I met him, but he's got some fucking demons, man, that he'd be put away in jail for now.
Yeah, but I
know this firsthand. I don't want to talk about it on the air. I might, as I it almost put me in therapy. Let's put it that way. So Jimmy. Yeah.
Now you got me intrigued. You can't put that carrot out there and not tell at least one of the stories.
He loved cocaine. That's for sure.
We know that.
He would carry kilo. He never flew. He had to drive because he knew he'd get busted at the airport. So he always flew. He he
always had cocaine. What do you want him to do? Go on a plane?
All right, so
he's not going on a plane with the cocaine.
Okay, we're gonna do this. I'll tell you my story.
Do it.
Okay?
All right. We got the story, Jimmy. We forced it out of him. Let's go,
Joe. Come on, Joe. Give it.
Okay, so the story goes: I went to high school. Pre-Missy Beefcake days. I went to high school in the 9th grade. I met a girl. I won't say her name, but I met a girl.
All right.
Her sisters used to like to go to the wrestling matches and hang out with the wrestlers, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, sure.
So my idol was Jimmy Snuka. I wanted to be Jimmy Snuka. That was my thing. I was 14, 15 years old. I idolized the guy. I had a scrapbook. I was. So,
all right, Joe, hold on 1 second. I need you to hold on. I'm just painting the picture. You meet this girl. You're attracted to her. You're like, hey, I'm going to bring you to a wrestling match. I'm going to let you meet Jimmy Snuka. I'm excited to see him. I see this is going. Let's go. Go ahead.
So one night we go to the matches. We're hanging out in the lobby and all that stuff. And then next, we're going to a restaurant because they always ate. Next to the Garden was a hotel called the Hotel 57. It was almost like connected to the Garden. And they had a restaurant there. It was like a fancy restaurant, but they would go there. Snuka, a young Brutus Beefcake was there.
Yeah, right.
So I'm sitting at the table. I'm with Jimmy Snuka. I'm like, holy shit, this is amazing. Like, I'm 40, and I'm just like godsmacked. I was like, wow, okay.
Joe, I got to stop you real quick. By any chance did he look at you and go, what a day, brother?
No, what a day. It wasn't what a day that day. I was never saying what a day, but he didn't catch on. He was very reclusive. He was very antisocial. He wasn't a social guy. He didn't like crowds. Right. So I met him, shook his hand. He, thank you for being a fan, brother. All that good stuff. And I met my idol. I was like, holy shit. Well,
nice.
What I didn't realize is the girl that I was attracted to, they were together.
Oh.
Once a month, they would hook up. She was 14.
Now, wait a minute.
She was 14.
What? They hooked up at that moment was the first time?
No, they've been together for a couple of years.
Whoa. Mike, stop. She was how old, Joe? How old was she?
Once I got to know her we were 15. She would show me pictures that Snuka would come to her house. She lived in Dorchester, Mass, which is a suburb of Boston. And she showed me pictures of him in the dining room. She was like 13 years old. She didn't look her age. Okay, so let me just.
Doesn't matter.
Much older.
Matter. Go ahead.
So basically, I was the boyfriend for 3 weeks out of the 4 weeks because Snuka would come to town and they'd be together. But we used to travel together. So another story was I was down in Providence, Rhode Island. We went down there. At this point, I'm using her to meet the wrestlers. I'm not really attracted to her anymore. I was just like, I know what you're doing. It's fucked up. All that shit. Drugs.
First of all, Joe, it's also probably a good idea too, because if she sleep with Jimmy Snuka, it's hard to match up with that, right?
Yeah, so he's like 30 something years old, and
it is.
So
the hell are you talking about? Anyway, go ahead.
So we go to Providence. She's waiting for him. I'm talking with Brutus the Barber Beefcake. He was in his Chippendales. He was the dancer phase, that kind of guy with Jimmy Valiant and all that stuff. I met Cyndi Lauper. I met Gorilla Monsoon. The Tonga kid at that time was around, and he was a pain in the ass in the locker room. He was always getting in fights. Gorilla Monsoon would kick him out, and Gorilla would look at me and be like, fucking kids, because he was like 17, 18 years old when he wrestled. And in comes Jimmy Snuka with his wife. And his wife showed up, and they went in together, and he totally ignored the girl.
Right.
I don't want to say her name, but
no, it's fine. It's fine. Okay.
And she was absolutely devastated. And I'm like, I told you, I fucking told you so. This guy, we found out later on that he had a girl in every town, young girls. He liked the young girls. What's the girl's name that he killed there?
Nancy Argentina.
I always say Martino. We heard that story back then, but I was a kid. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if he really did that or not, but I could tell he missed a lot of shows, by the way.
Joe, real quick, how old were you when you were dating her? Can I ask that? Is that okay?
Yeah, it was 15, 14.
Okay, 15. You were 15 and she was 13 when you guys began. How long were you together with her, real quick?
I knew her personally all through high school. I went in the Navy. I met her in the Navy. She flew out and met me in the Navy a couple of times, and I met her afterwards and all that stuff. But I haven't seen her, talk to her. I mean, I think I touched base with her like 6-7 years ago. She's
Joe. Joe, I gotta ask you though. Wait a minute though. How difficult was it? You said at one point you were using her to meet the wrestlers. How do you deal with all of that? I would have been like, you tramp, get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it was a mental thing for me. I was meeting my idol.
Killer Khan. I mean, what's going on here? Are you serious?
Wait a minute. Hold on, Jimmy. You heard Joe's story. You heard Joe's story, right, Jimmy?
Yeah.
It was a sad, depressing story. I'm going to tell you my story. Tell me which one's worse. All right.
It was a pretty wild
You remember
story.
Janice from high school? Let's not use her last name, Janet S. Do you remember Janet S?
Yeah. Go ahead.
So me and Janet S had a relationship, and it was summer of '85. I don't know. I'm making it up, but I forget.
Yeah, one of those summers back.
And she worked at a bagel place, and one day I went to pick her up on my bicycle.
Nice.
And she comes out and she goes, I have to break up with you. And I was head over heels for her because Ralph Macchio had come into the bagel shop and asked her on a date.
Oh, God.
So which one is worse? Joe losing his girlfriend to Jimmy Snuka or me losing my girlfriend to Ralph Macchio, the Karate Kid?
I didn't totally lose her because after the wife showed up in Providence, they never saw each other again. So that was
and Joe got to meet Abdullah the Butcher and Stan Hansen. So
I didn't meet anybody.
You know what, Joe?
I met Jimmy Pharaoh. I met Jimmy Pharaoh. That's who I met after that. So how fair is life?
But
wait a minute.
You got to understand, I'm 14, 15 years old. My parents were like, what the fuck are you doing? They were like, you're hanging out with these guys that are 30, 40 years old, and all for what? And I go, I want to meet them. I see these guys on TV. I'm a fan. I want, you know how it is. Now, I wasn't a groupie per se,
Joe,
but I love talking to them. It pisses me off. I lost a lot of pictures back in the day with my parents' house. I got pictures of me and Brutus. He's always posing, doing stuff like that backstage. Me and Gorilla Monsoon. I mean, can
I just say something though? To be honest,
go ahead.
I was expecting like a dark side of the ring type of story.
It is a dark side. I'm giving you the.
Here's the deal, though. Here's the deal, though. Time out. We're gonna play really quickly because Mike asked me which one is worse. So we're gonna play Da Dirty. All right.
Okay.
And since I'm the referee, I've heard both stories. This is what I think. Unfortunately, Mike, your story is worse. And I'll tell you why for a bunch of different reasons. Number one,
please,
Joe. I don't having a good time, one way or the other. So he's having a good time. and he gets to go to wrestling matches and meet famous wrestlers. And at the end of the day, they even talked and hung out from time to time after the fucking Navy. You go into a bagel place and find out that Ralph Macchio has just the last American virgin to you.
Yes, thank you.
You're done. You probably didn't even get a free fucking bagel. Let's be honest about this.
All right?
Not even an egg sandwich.
So unfortunately, our winner this week.
All right, Joe. I got to put Jimmy. I got to put Joe on the spot. I got to put Joe on the spot, though. Okay. You're 15, Joe. So I'm imagining sex is just beginning for you, right? Your hormones.
Hold on, really
aging,
quick.
Right?
My girl Joe Myers put a nice little quote in there, and it's true. So if you read that quote, Joe Myers, that's my baby cakes.
No, I know who that is. You want me to go to YouTube?
She put a comment. She put a comment in there, and it's true. To this day, it's true.
Okay.
So
I'm
being honest here. So
yeah, it's fine, but I haven't read it yet. I can't see it. Okay. I don't know where it is.
It's right there, right after Phil's.
Let's see what we got.
I'm looking. Joe. Where are you, Joe Myers?
Joe Myers, right there, right above Phil DeCesare.
Wait a minute.
Wow, you know something, Mike. I guess I gotta ask you this then too, as the dirty goes to an extended few minutes. You didn't need therapy for Macchio, did you?
I did. That was a depressing time for me. Wow. That was depressing. To lose your girl to Ralph Macchio is a lot. Bro. I think that's when I started lifting weights, Jimmy. I was mad. That's what I think. I would think it was smart, Jimmy.
Mike, back in the day, I was in the band scene, and I had a really, really good, successful band on Long Island, right? And I made a lot of musician friends. I'll never forget, man. One day, my friend Brian from a really great band, he came to me, and he goes, "You'll never believe what happened." And I'm like, "What happened?" And he goes, "My girlfriend just fucking ran off with Lane Staley from Alice in Chains. He banged her. He banged her in an area we won't get into, and then just dumped her." And I'm like looking at him. I'm like, "Oh my God, this guy's gonna need therapy."
That's how Mike, what were you gonna ask me? You're gonna ask me something.
No. So, and I'm really being serious. This isn't a joke.
Okay.
Here you are, a young man. You're attracted to this girl. You find out she's sleeping with Jimmy Snuka. You got to know in your mind, that thing's got to be 80 feet long in between his legs. Are you just yeah?
That's a serious question.
This is serious.
Joe, you got to be serious out. With you.
No, you got to check out. You got to say, I'm done. I'm not doing this because I'll never make the grade.
Oh my God.
I'm being
serious, Jimmy.
That would not even occur to me. God!
I'm 15 years old, and I'm living a dual. It's almost like I don't want to. What's the word? Split personality disorder.
Right.
I go there. I go from being her boyfriend that night to just somebody hanging out with the wrestlers.
Which was fine. You using her to wrestlers is cool. I get that.
Right. At first, I really liked her, and at first, it really hurt. But meeting the wrestlers and meeting Snuka and all that stuff, that kind of took the pain away.
Wow.
So as everything, no, this is strange. I know it is.
I'm sorry. It's
Joe. You didn't want to, Joe. You didn't want to smack Snuka in the face. I would have slapped him in his fucking mug when he walked in with his. I don't give a shit.
Not that guy. Not that guy.
All I can't say, there was an angry time. I was angry a couple of times.
I would have hit with a 2x4.
To the point, I was angry at certain times where I just, I did have to check out, but I was like, no, I want to meet the wrestlers. I want to hang out with the wrestlers. So.
That's fucked up, dude.
But here's the fucked up thing. After it all ended, I was not in love with her anymore, but she was in love with me. You know what I mean?
Good.
So it was
good.
Yeah. And then I'll be honest with you, we had it out in her kitchen, and I was like, what you've been doing for years is fucked up. And my sisters and my brothers were like, what the fuck? This guy should be in jail. He's fucking 13-year-olds and 14-year-olds.
Right.
And he's like 30 or 40 years old. This is the first time I'm talking about this, so leave it to Monte and the Pharaoh show to talk about this. And
sorry about it, baby. Sorry about that.
You think Lee Cole's talking about Jimmy Snuka doing 13-year-olds?
No,
right?
I don't think so.
I mean,
I don't know.
This is yeah. You know what? This is why Jimmy Snuka wasn't a good guy, and this is why a company couldn't put the rap company name around.
The drugs, man. I've never seen cocaine, that amount of cocaine. He had a suitcase full of this shit wherever he went.
Right.
And one day I got to carry that suitcase. He says, "Don't lose it." Well, I had to watch the suitcase one night, and
wait a minute. Wait.
Was full. I looked in it, and it was full of fucking cocaine. Like,
we have a 15-year-old. If I can, Joe, without insult, we have a 15-year-old, early '80s Mark watching the cocaine for Jimmy Superfly Snuka. I just want to make sure we got all of that right. Here's the best part. Joe, get ready. Joe, get ready for the hate mail. It's going to come. Okay, it's all your fault that you're telling these truthful stories about a wrestling legend. How dare you? Get ready.
Wait a minute, Joe. Even to go further, I think you just said you also partaked in the cocaine at 15 years old.
I didn't say that.
Of course, I did.
Yes, he did.
You did?
I partied. Joe. I partied with these guys. These guys were partying.
Oh my God!
So think about that. That they influenced a 15-year-old kid to do coke.
I was very mature for my age. Here I am, 15 in high school. Everyone's playing sports and basketball, and I'm hanging out with wrestlers once a month. You know what I mean?
Joe,
that's what I did. My high school years were like that. What's that?
Did that cocaine habits, was that hard to kick over the years or what?
No, I just did it recreational. It was fine. I mean,
oh wow! Consider yourself very fortunate,
Jimmy. Listen, he's a 15-year-old kid around his idols. Thank God they didn't throw pills at him. You know what I mean? It's like, where's the morality? Where's the morality? Does Vince McMahon get the blame for that? Does Vince McMahon get the blame for that?
Is that Vince's fault? I mean,
that's not Vince's fault, because back then you were legitimately an independent contractor. You were paid at every arena you went to, and that's what Snuka was big on that. Gorilla Monsoon had wads of cash on him. I do believe I'll remember one night the Tonga kid. It was Tonga and Piper versus Snuka and somebody else. Oh, Snuka and Tonga versus Piper and Orton. They had that feud going on. We were in Providence. No, we were in Boston Garden, and Gorilla asked Tonga kid to blade himself, and he was like 17, 18 years old too. He was a young kid when he got involved with wrestling, and he bladed himself so much that he couldn't stop bleeding. Gorilla's like, what the fuck? I didn't want all that kind of blood. He was bleeding everywhere. It was bad. So they wrapped his head up, and we go out to dinner afterwards at the Hotel 57 restaurant. And here's the Tonga kid in his full wrestling gear, the Samoan shirt and the wraparound skirt and all that stuff. And he's walking the streets of Boston like, hey, look at me. I'm a wrestler. And then I remember, I think it was Piper who was like, what's up with that kid? And he looked at me, and Piper looked at me and said, why don't you go talk to that kid and calm him down? And I went out there and I said, look, bro, you gotta chill out. I mean, you can't be walking the streets with a bloody forehead in character mode too, by the way. He was very hyper as
Joe,
a kid.
Let me ask you a question. When they came to town, you went with who gave you the call? The girl? She says, hey, they're in town, let's go.
Oh, no.
Is that how it worked?
I was a wrestling fan. Phil DeCesare could tell you. They came the first Saturday of every month at the Boston Garden.
So you just went there and they knew who you were and said, okay, let's go to dinner?
Me and her and her, don't forget her sisters were involved in this too, her older sisters. So we would drive to the garden, go in the garden. We didn't even have tickets. We had a side entrance. We'd go in the back entrance. The security guards knew who they were. They knew who all those girls were with the wrestlers. And next, we're backstage. We were never in the locker rooms. We were always right outside the locker rooms where they would, wait to go get in the ring and all this stuff and go down the aisle and everything. So
when you went to dinner, did they pay for dinner for you? You had to pay your own.
Yeah, they paid. They had back then it was all cash with them. Snuka had wads of cash. Orndorff, Piper, Orton, wads of cash. Back then it was a cash. I think it was a cash company.
Right.
You got paid when you showed up. And I think it was, I don't know if it was Tony Gurria or somebody. He was involved with helping paying the guys too. He had the suitcase, he had the money, and that's how they got their money back then. It wasn't like you got a check and a W-2 and all that stuff. You got cash. So we're talking 85, 86. Hogan, I've met him once. he was looking for somebody. Hogan never was around these guys. He didn't participate in this stuff.
Good.
This was post WrestleMania. This was after the first WrestleMania and stuff. I mean, it was going crazy. But I was shocked one night. He was at a bar. Nobody was around him. Like, you see Hogan. You're like, oh, shit, that's Hulk Hogan. And he was alone. And, I went up to him and was like, hey, what's up? And he's like, oh, how you doing? And that was it. Just a meet and greet, real 30 seconds. I left him alone. Went back to hang out. The Samoans were there. Afa and Sika were there. And, they were just hanging out. It was like they owned the place, but they didn't. People would still come in and all that stuff. But it was always that place they would go, the restaurant next door to the Garden. I forget the name of it. It was the Hotel 57 restaurant that was across the street from the Garden. But it was normal. It was normal. It was just a normal thing.
Last question for you guys before we get off of air.
Yeah.
Final rumor. Bret Hart knew about the Montreal screw job. Weigh in, Jimmy, and then also you, Joe.
Well, I've always told you that Bret Hart didn't know shit. That's just a bunch of nonsense, and he didn't go away for over a decade just to come back, in that sort of physical state either. No, the screw job was in, but it wasn't in Bret's knowledge. That's nonsense. I don't believe that to this day. I understand wrestling is a work and yada, yada, yada. And Vince Russo was sent to destroy WCW. He was going to destroy it, whether he was sent there or not. I mean, do your homework, folks. So, no, I don't think that Bret Hart knew shit. And I think that's why Vince McMahon wound up getting punched and had a wad of spit in his face, And I think that was very real. To me, it was not much different from George and Yogi. Yogi Berra stayed away from Yankee Stadium for a very, very long time, and then eventually came back. So, no, I don't think that was staged at all.
What about you, Joe?
Well, we know now that the Montreal screw job was a work to some extent. I don't know what the extent it was. I think it was going to be Shawn Michaels winning the title. I think they told Shawn Michaels. He didn't tell Bret Hart.
Right.
It was supposed to be a regular match. If you notice, they start off in a regular match and they start wrestling outside the ring, and all of a sudden Vince comes out with his cronies. Everyone's outside there. It's fucking chaos, if you remember. And even you could tell that something went wrong. Did Shawn Michaels know? Yeah, he's come clean with that. But when you look at the videos in the dressing room, someone had a camera on the table or whatever, and they're talking, and Bret Hart looks at Shawn Michaels, goes, "Did you know about this? Did you know about this?" Like, okay, why is the camera there? Why are they
the camera
going on?
Joe, the camera is there because I believe that Vince McMahon thought the whole thing out. Vince McMahon is truly a twisted genius. Okay, I think Vince was like, "Run the camera. This is going to be great."
Oh, Vince loves the media, whether it's positive or negative. So the PR,
Correct.
He's going to get it out there. I think what happened was that, I don't think it played out the way it was supposed to play out.
Mm-hmm.
There might have been some animosity with Vince and Bret. I honestly believe Vince is a very smart wrestling man. He knew what was on the table. He knew that Bret was going to the WCW. He did not want a repeat of him taking the title and dropping it in the trash like Usyk did.
Right.
That was 3 years prior.
Right.
A lot of people thought that screw job was similar to what was going to happen with Medusa. So fast forward, I think to the extent that people that knew about it, I think it just went too far.
Yep. And would Vince McMahon want, if he knew about everything, would he really want Bret Hart, who's about to leave the company and go to his competitor, who's giving him a hell of a fight at that time? Okay. Sure. Would he really want Bret Hart to stand in the ring and write WCW in the air? No.
That's where I think things took a turn, because the way it ended, the quick bell ringing and all that stuff, it was just a horrible thing. I watched it with my son, and we're both scratching our heads like, what the fuck just happened? What's going on here? I think there was some intent. I think it got out of hand. Yeah. I think Vince really thought that he was going to put Michaels in his submission hold and not let go. Things like that. He told him to finish. You could see it on camera. Finish the goddamn match. Finish the goddamn match. Yeah. Slaughter, Greer, Briscoe all around. You knew something was up. And he told him to get back in the ring and friggin' end this thing. And it was chaos. after that. I think after that, it was real. I thought the storyline got real, spitting on Vince, the fight backstage afterwards and all that. And Vince took it and did amazing things with it going on Raw. He loved it. It turned into that big work. You know, and then,
and Bischoff took it and botched one of the biggest possibilities they could have had over there with Bret Hart. He botched it. So Vince wins once again.
Yeah. And that was, what are you talking? Post Attitude Era, because the Attitude Era, no, pre-Attitude Era.
Right before it's really going to get
Vince
going.
Said, you know what? I'm taking this company to a different level now. And they don't want the Canadian good guy and all that stuff. Because Bret Hart was he wasn't going to be the type of guy that Vince wanted for the Attitude Era. He didn't want to.
Well, keep in mind too that WCW was winning the war at the time because of what? Because of their edginess. Okay, the screw job showed which company could truly be edgy, and it was Vince's company.
I think that was the prelude to the Attitude Era. There's no doubt about it. Because things after that got friggin' crazy.
Well, you got to remember that was the start of the creation of the greatest heel that pro wrestling ever saw in its life, Vince McMahon.
Right.
So again, when you think about Vince McMahon and what he's done for the industry, he was a great announcer.
Yes, he was.
He was the greatest bad guy in the history of wrestling, and he is the greatest promoter. I mean, he you know, think about it. He was better than the wrestlers, even though he couldn't wrestle. He was the best bad guy of all time.
He had.
All right, guys. Thank you for sharing the story. Thanks for coming on. We'll have you on next week when Missy's on, so you guys can have a little bit of a.
I went to high school with her. You guys know that? I went to high school with her.
No, we kind of heard that.
You know what?
Jimmy, you want to send us out?
You've been watching Monte and the Pharaoh, and until next time, later.
What a day.
Jimmy Snuka's long schlong.
Ugh, brother.